hello, and welcome to the Salty Vapor. I am Chris Jordan. We're here today broadcasting to you from Richmond, Indiana, in the heart of these United States of America. And what we have on in store for you today is a full review of an RDA, the Aeolus RDA, if you can so read that there. It's the Aeolus RDA by a company called Syntheticloud out of San Diego, California. Syntheticloud, I assume is how you say that. Syntheticloud, yeah, Syntheticloud. But they are the makers of this very innovative, very interesting RDA. I suppose to sum up my thoughts on this, and we'll definitely get more specific as we go along here, but a nice brief summary of my experience would be that I hated this RDA for the first 10 minutes of my ownership of it, and I have loved it ever since. So, and we'll get into some of the reasons why I did hate it at first, and so on. First, the price up front is not a cheap one. It's $85. So in terms of value, this is one that we would expect to really exceed our expectations, deliver an awesome vape, and give us our money's worth. As vendors, I'm sure don't like it, but and modders and RDA makers and things don't like it, but price is important. And I've heard some reviewers sort of downplay this and say, price, who cares about the price? Price is important. It determines the value of the RDA. So if you're looking at an $85 RDA or a $15 RDA, you would certainly expect the $85 RDA to perform better. Now, there's all the stuff with authentics versus clones, originals versus replicas, and certainly the time and effort that went into designing this RDA has to be factored into the price, and the fact that it's made in the United States, the fact that it is high quality material, all these things are factors. And is $85 a fair price? I don't know. We'll see kind of as we go along, and I'll give you an assessment of sort of the value of this particular RDA. First, let's look at some specifications directly from Syntheticloud. The website will be up in the description, by the way, but it's syntheticloud.com. It is made of 304 grade stainless steel. It has Syntheticloud's anti-flood system. Not 100% sure what that is, but it has it. Has adjustable vertical airflow. We will get into that in the up close portion especially. It has interchangeable center post. Again, not sure, it doesn't include another center post that you can interchange with it, but apparently you can. There are posts available out there that you can interchange. Heat sink adapter here on the bottom, which is removable, if I forget to mention that. I think it does help with sort of dispersing the heat better. I've used it with it on and with it off, and I do think that the heat sink does keep the mod from getting as hot. Is there still some heat transference? Absolutely, but I do think it keeps the mod cooler than it does without it. So I don't think it's purely cosmetic. I think it is serving a purpose there. It has peak insulators capable of withstanding temperatures up to 649.4 degrees Fahrenheit. That's awfully specific. It has a very deep juice well. Pure copper pin, Viton O-rings capable of withstanding temperatures up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And then some key features. Syntheticloud is very complete with their description of the product here. They include paragraph after paragraph of information, but some of the key features include Syntheticloud's signature vertical airflow system. And I think it is unique. I haven't really seen another RDA with quite this kind of airflow system. Versatile airflow control, anti-flood cover, heat sink, and anti-spitback design. And come to think of it, I haven't had much spitback. I'm not sure. I think the way that the airflow is designed and the top cap is designed does help to like cut down on spitback. But that said, I don't have a lot of spitback with my builds anyway. But yeah, I think their advertising is fairly spot on with the product itself. Customer service at Aeolus, again, for an $85 RDA, you would expect really good customer service. I thought it was pretty average. They didn't really exceed my expectations. One thing that bothers me is that they only offer first class mail as a shipping option. They should at a minimum offer, in my opinion, priority mail as an option, so that you get better tracking information and faster results. And they should also ship things out the next business day as they promised, which didn't happen in my case. It was supposed to ship out on a Monday and it shipped out on a Wednesday. So already on top of a longer shipping process because of the only one option for shipping, then there was a 2-day delay on their getting it out. So it took quite a while, a good week and a half, for me to get this $85 RDA, which I was just chopping at the bit to get, and that was sort of frustrating. The other thing, and we'll talk about this in the up close, is that it comes with two kinds of O-rings. It comes with these blue O-rings installed, and again, we'll talk about this more in the up close and more in the pros and cons, but the shorthand for this is just avoid the black ones. They're far too large, and they don't allow things to seat properly at all. You can't even get the top cap on. So in terms of customer service, again, if you're charging $85 for an RDA, get the O-rings right. Don't put O-rings in that are so tight that you can't even get the top cap on your deck. I'm not sure what the RDA makers are thinking there. I think they had some complaints about the blue O-rings being too loose, so this was their solution. Not a good one. They don't work. The blue ones are far superior. Again, the black ones I heard were an upgrade, but no, throw them in your toolbox. Don't put them on the RDA. Use the blue ones. Bottom line. So kind of a mixed bag in terms of customer service, and we'll get into the actual RDA, the actual things about the RDA as we go along here. But the customer service experience is all part of when you're dealing with an online vendor, as we are here. The customer service experience is certainly part of that. Now, I haven't called them and complained or anything because I've been happy with the blue O-rings, but if I were to, I don't know, they might send out some sort of replacement O-rings or something, which might be necessary at some point. Like, I'm hoping they'll continue to have these blue O-rings, because the black ones are totally useless for this RDA. They might be great on another RDA, so I'll keep them, but otherwise I would have liked to have thrown them in the trash or burnt them with a flamethrower or something, because they were a frustrating mess, and caused, again, the first 10 minutes of my ownership was filled with hatred and cursing and and why did I pay $85 for this? The O-rings don't even work. Again, this is one of these things that I would expect engineers and RDA makers and modders to choose the appropriate O-rings, and not include O-rings that that don't come close to fitting the device. So a thumbs down on that, Syntheticloud. I think you could do better. So with that, why don't we go down, take a look up close and personal at what you get and some of the parts and pieces of this RDA, and then we will go from there. So see you in one moment. Here we are down and dirty with the Syntheticloud Aeolus RDA. You'll see it comes in this nice little presentation tube, which honestly it's not that special, but it's far more than you get with a lot of authentic RDA. So I think Syntheticloud did a reasonably good job with their presentation here. Inside this tube we get a couple of baggies. The RDA itself is in the first baggie here. You'll see there she is in all of her glory, the Aeolus RDA. And we'll kind of break that down to bits here in a second. But you also get this bag of spare screws and O-rings. Again, those you'll see those bluish, purplish O-rings. Those are the good ones. The black ones, totally useless. Throw those away. Put them in your collection, but certainly don't try and use them on your Aeolus RDA because they do not work. So putting that aside, we'll kind of break this into pieces. As I mentioned before, it does have this removable heatsink adapter of sorts, which both the heatsink adapter you see has an extremely long protruding center pin there, and the Aeolus has a nice protruding center pin. So I think both would be appropriate on a hybrid mod, or as appropriate as anything else. Hybrid mods are not my favorite thing, and I never would recommend using them, but nevertheless, this one is probably safe to use on that. So here's the Aeolus mod, or the Aeolus RDA. Get the focus right here. And the Aeolus is the Greek god of wind, I believe, is where the name comes from. Breaking it down further, you'll see that this top piece, which is kind of hard to get a hold of sometimes, comes off. And this is how you adjust your airflow. You'll see in the top there, you have the 3 holes on each side. If you wanted a single airflow, you would choose this option with the airflow, open airflow, and then closed on this side. So it's closed here, open here. Or if you want dual airflow, which is what I've been using, you see you have the dual airflow, and you just align those with those air holes. So, you know, if you want a dual airflow, again, as I've been using, you take your dual airflow slots, you line them up with your airflow holes, and you end up with that. See, it has the Syntheticloud logo on the bottom there, serial number 0175. This top cap, well, let's remove the build deck here. I have taken the wicking out so you could take a look at the build deck a little bit closer. Additionally, this top cap comes off, so you kind of have the barrel on this hand and the top cap on this hand. The barrel is relatively light. This piece is relatively heavy, which makes the RDA ever so slightly awkward, but not too bad. Has the single O-ring there holding it on. Again, the O-ring could be a little tighter. The O-rings on the build deck could be a little tighter, but nevertheless, the blue O-rings do serve the purpose much better than the black ones. It does not come with a drip tip, and so I've been using this Cherry Vape strip tip because it fits. It actually fits in this hole. You see this 510 hole here. Some drip tips will not fit in this particular hole. I don't think I have it with me, but I have a El Diablo version 2 drip tip that I was planning to use with this RDA. It did not fit. It was far too loose, so I went with the Cherry Vapes West Chaser, and it just fits. And this one is tight in most of my RDAs, very tight, but in this one it just fits. So I think that one still looks pretty good on a black mod especially. Okay, those are sort of the component pieces. The Aeolus broken down to its component pieces. So let's put her back together. I've been using it, as I said, like primarily with the heatsink. I think it does help to dissipate some of the heat, keeps your mods from getting hot. I don't think it's purely cosmetic. I do think it does some actual practical good. You'll see the top of my Sigeli there is relatively juice free. This one is not a leaker, which we'll talk about more in the pros and cons. So here we are back on my Sigeli 100 watt plus. Take just a quick look at the build deck itself, get you focused in here. You'll see it has a nice deep juice well. Let's sort of measure that. It's really hard to measure juice wells, but about a 3.9 millimeter juice well, deep juice well, I would say. Possibly slightly more, maybe about a 4 millimeter juice well. So nice deep juice well, and with the airflow design, it makes this virtually leak proof, which is Syntheticloud, one of definitely Syntheticloud's big selling points, and I found that to be the case. You also see you have some flathead screws there. You have to use your if you have a micro screwdriver set, use your largest flathead screwdriver, or even a non-micro flathead screwdriver on these screws. They're pretty gigantic. They do have some knurling on them, as you can see there, which it's never, in my opinion, the knurling, you can never get a good enough grip to tighten it down completely. But what you can do, what the knurling does help you do, is when you're putting your build in, you can sort of snug up your negative, snug up your other negative, and then when you get both your positives in, snug that up, and then use the screwdriver to really tighten them down. So that's a little bit somewhat handy. You don't have to, when you're just getting your build in place and and just need it somewhat tight to hold your build in place, the knurling does work for that purpose. So I think some thought was put into that. Let's see. While we're down here, I'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and take some measurements here. And you'll see the way that you, this is kind of an important part. I'll show you while we're up close. When you're lining your airflow up with your coils, you'll see this barrel is just very plain, and it just, one point here, one thing that might save you some misery also. You'll see on this barrel, there is a little stair step on this side, and on this side, no little stair step or bevel or whatever you want to call it. It has this notch cut out, and the notch goes down. It goes down on the build deck, and it kind of has the effect of kind of a little covering over that over your build deck. So it kind of has that effect. So if you try to put it the other way, it will work as far as getting it on there, and then this top cap will never go on correctly. It'll always fit way too loose and so on. So you definitely, when you're putting that barrel on, it looks so similar, but you definitely want to put that side that's notched out down onto your build deck, and you line up. When you're lining up your airflow, you just want to, you want to put your 3 air holes directly over each of the coils. So you eyeball it and you come out with something like that. So this one isn't wicked right now. I will wick it before we go back up top. But before we do that, let's do some measurements here. It is advertised as being a 22 millimeter RDA, and if we measure the barrel diameter, it is indeed 22.08 millimeters. If we measure it without the drip tip from top to bottom, and I won't include the 510 pin here, but including the rest of the atomizer, as you can see there, comes out to be 34.25 millimeters. Has this little bevel on the top where your airflow control is. Nope, airflow control fell off. Let me get that back on. So that airflow control diameter is right at 17.65 millimeters. So there is a little bit of a bevel down there. You'll see that the inside kind of a little bit of a conical design there. This piece is so substantial. I think that it does reduce. This looks like somewhat of a long barrel, especially with that heat sink. But obviously, the heat sink's not included in the build deck. But by the time you get this piece in there, it's a very reduced chamber with a slight conical design there. I think that helps out with the flavor. And there she is. So we'll put our drip tip back in. We'll go ahead and call it a day in terms of this up close portion. I will get this re-wicked. We will go back up top and talk about some pros and cons, some final recommendations, and call it a review. So see you in one moment. Welcome back up top, folks. We are here again with the Aeolus RDA by Syntheticloud. I'm going to discuss some pros, some cons, some recommendations, but I'll start off with kind of my out of the box experience that kind of at first soured me on the whole thing, and try to give you some tips on how to avoid those pitfalls. First off, I'd seen other YouTube videos, and my understanding was from those videos from the website was that the black O-rings were an upgrade to the blue O-rings. I'd heard that the blue O-rings were far too loose, and that the black O-rings corrected this. So when I got the RDA, I immediately took off the blue O-rings, put on the black ones, and then spent 10 minutes fiddling with everything to try and get the top cap, the barrel on, trying to get the top cap on. All the O-rings were way too tight, so tight they were cutting into the barrel was cutting into the O-rings, and you know, I had slivers of rubber everywhere, and still couldn't get the top cap on, and so I gave up on that. I put the blue O-rings back on, and my fear was that they were going to be so loose that it was going to be a problem, and then I was going to have to try and find some O-rings that would work. But as it turned out, the blue O-rings were not all that loose. You know, the ones on this barrel could stand to be a little bit tighter, and you know, that'll certainly be one of the things we'll talk about. But what bothers me more than that is that, you know, an RDA maker would include O-rings, such as the black ones, that are so obviously inappropriate to the device. I'm not sure. I know that it was to address the complaints they've been getting with the blue O-rings. In my opinion, the complaints about the blue O-rings might be a little bit overblown, because in my experience, everything, you know, you can wiggle this, it stays on. You really have to put some pressure on it to get it off, but you know, not too much to the point where it's annoying. This barrel, I wish it was a little tighter. It's kind of the same, almost the same pressure to get the barrel off as the top cap, which creates a problem because sometimes when you take the top cap off, it pulls the barrel off. But usually what I do to avoid this is I kind of take it and push the edge of it with my thumb to unseat that O-ring and then pull it off. So that's the way that I avoid pulling the barrel off every time, because I really just want to take that top cap off to drip into it. So with that said, again, that's why I hated this device for the first 10 minutes of ownership, and have pretty much loved it ever since. You know, it just sort of sticks in my craw that an RDA maker would put those ridiculous black O-rings in there that are so much too big that you can't even get the top cap on. It's not you'd have to shave it down considerably to even get the cap to seat properly. It's not that it goes on and it's a little bit tight, it's that it doesn't even go on, and that should have been taken care of in quality control. I think it was kind of a slapdash last minute fix to attempt to fix these this loose O-ring issue with the blue O-rings, which aren't all that loose to begin with, in my opinion, but nevertheless, you know, for $85, hey, get the O-rings right. That's not too much to ask. But with that said, let's go into the pros and the cons. The pros are very numerous. It has nice airflow, not too loose, not too tight. For me, for my vaping style, I guess, like, if you my other sort of go-to Addy has been the Troll RDA, and I closed the airflow down about halfway, and I suppose this one is about like that, only a little bit tighter. I would say that Cloud Chasers will be very disappointed, but Flavor Chasers will just love this RDA, and you can still get really nice vapor production. I would say that's one of the pros, but it doesn't have that super wide open, super swooshy airflow like a Troll RDA wide open, or a CLT V3 wide open would have. It's not a cloud competition RDA, so keep that in mind. As I said, flavor has great flavor. Flavor chasers are going to love this. Another big pro to this. I think it's on par with some of the other big flavor Addies that I've tried. The Marquis, the Plume Veil. I think it's right there with those in terms of flavor. So, great flavor, great airflow. Two very important things to look at when you're looking at an RDA, and this one just it's a 10 of 10 on both of those points. The deck, very simple to build on. Standard 3-post Addy. I throw my normal 24 gauge 0.2 ohm. Sometimes it comes out to 0.3 depending on how many wraps I do, obviously, but usually I try to do about seven wraps, 24 gauge dual coil, and it comes out to be around 0.2 ohms, but very simple to build on. It's not necessary to do a center post build or anything like that. You just throw your standard build on there. Another big pro in terms of usability, this is just a very, very easy RDA to use. Day in, day out, it just performs, and it it's really simple to drip on with that removable, easily removable top cap. You just and it's very, very, you can't really over drip with this thing. I suppose you could completely flood it, but but you can just pour juice in there, and it's good to go. Even with over dripping, it doesn't leak. I haven't even had condensation. The airflow is up so high on this that I haven't even had condensation on my mod. It keeps the condensation up there. The top cap, I guess for being a super picky, some condensation does build up around this lip around the top cap, so when you take it off to fill it, you kind of get it on your fingers, but what RDA doesn't have that? I know of none, so that's being very, very picky. This is, in terms of leakage, the very best RDA that I've seen to date, so very impressive on that. The website advertises this as being anti-spitback, and I have found that to be true, but in all honesty, I don't have a lot of spitback with my builds anyway, but this one has had zero spitback, so I'll buy into that. That anti-spitback notion that the design of the airflow and the top cap and everything prevents spitback. It seems to be the case, so I will certainly let you know if it turns out not to be, but it seems to be so far. Great solid build quality. This is a nice little chunk of this top cap. Is just a nice little chunk of metal, really beefy, thick metal there. Excellent machining. There aren't any like burrs to speak of. The edges are very nice. On some of the cheaper and less well-made Addies I've seen, these heat sinks can be very sharp. This one on the Aeolus is not sharp at all. Just very nice build quality. The barrel's nice and solid and thick. The machining is great. I've heard some reviewers complain about the center post spinning. I have not had that problem as of yet. Again, if that does come about, I will report back, but the center post has been stable so far, so again, I would give the build quality at least a 9 out of 10. The cons, we've already talked about my big con, and I'm kind of an O-ring Nazi, but having the appropriate O-rings on the RDA is so basic and so elemental. It's something that every manufacturer, every RDA maker ought to pay attention to. First and foremost is that you have the appropriate O-rings on your device, because when you don't, it makes the user experience so much worse. And the problem with this RDA was not so much that the problem was that the upgraded O-rings were the issue. The standard blue O-rings that originally came with the RDA, I don't have a problem with, but those ones that came that were supposedly upgraded O-rings have a huge problem with those. Those should have never been sent out with this RDA. They're way too tight, unusable completely. So use the blue ones, put the black ones in your tool chest. Maybe you can use them with something else. A second con, and this is also again a very basic and kind of elemental thing that should have been dealt with. Should have been dealt with in quality control. And we talked about this a little bit in the up close, but that 510 drip tip hole there is bored out too much. And this Cherry Vape strip tip is really the only one that I have that fits snugly. A lot of other ones, and especially what was especially annoying is I bought this really nice El Diablo version 2 drip tip to go with this RDA, and it didn't fit. So that was sort of frustrating. Again, this is something that RDA makers should take note of. Don't make your drip tip connection so loose that it's only going to fit 1 out of 10 drip tips. Make sure that it's going to fit the bulk of the drip tips out there. You probably can't make it fit every one, although why can't these drip tips be a little more standardized? I know a lot of them, these are friction fit, and the O-ring type do fit a tad better, but these and these Cherry Vape drip tips tend to be a bit tight on my other RDAs, which is why when the El Diablo didn't work, I thought, well, the Cherry Vapes probably will, and it did. And it actually looks pretty nice on there. Kind of goes with the heat sinks and things, so I'm happy with it. But I wish that it was a little more versatile in terms of drip tips. And the last con, and this is very subjective, and it doesn't really apply to me in my style of vaping, but as I said before, this is not really a cloud chasing atomizer. And again, that can be a pro for some and a con for some, but I just want to make it clear to viewers who are looking for something to chase clouds with, something to get huge vapor production out of, huge airflow out of. This is not the one. It has a relatively, I would say mid-range airflow. Again, not too tight, not too loose. Still's nice and swooshy, still really good vapor production. Compared to RDAs that were being put out a year ago or a year and a half ago, the airflow was very wide open. Compared to in an Atlantis tank or something, the airflow is still very good. But compared to some of these crazy wide open cloud chasing addies, it is a bit tighter. And so if that's what you're looking for, this might not be the RDA for you. But finally, would I recommend this atomizer? Would I recommend this $85 atomizer that is not without problems? Yes, I would. I think overall, this thing has just been such a pleasure to use, and I'm big on the user experience, the usability, the qualitative aspects of the devices. You know, if it works well for me on a day-to-day basis, if it doesn't cause me problems, doesn't leak, isn't difficult to use, isn't just a constant pain, then that scores big for me. So, and this has been the very best in that regard. As we look toward a version 2, there are certainly some things that they can improve, make the O-rings a little bit tighter, don't send out totally inappropriate O-rings, tighten up that drip tip hole a little bit, and so on. But overall, this is just a great device. Even at $85, I paid for it myself. I would pay for it again. If something happened to this one, I would buy another one. And that's a pretty big endorsement coming from me, because this is the most expensive atomizer in my collection, so probably by nearly double the next closest competitor. So, and if you count the drip tip, it's probably got $11-12 in the drip tip and $85. So we're getting close to a C note in this setup, and it's worth every penny. I'm pleased with it. Just vapes like a champ. So I think we'll close the book on the Aeolus atomizer. It gets all the accolades that I can give it. I think that for 9 out of 10 vapors out there, this is just a great fit. For the minority of cloud chasers out there, this is not going to be your top choice, but for everyone else, just a great addy. I think they're onto something with this top airflow design. I think that there are other little engineering aspects to the design that they've been engineered to make the device just super usable, and a big time pleasure to use. So again, high recommendations on this, but we'll close the books on the Aeolus. Next up for review, I believe, will be the Arctic Tank by Horizon Tech. I did a pretty extensive first look at this, but I'm going to go ahead and do a full review and update you on how it's been going since after using it for a month or so, and let you know how that's going. Maybe compare it a little bit more to the sub-tank, the Kinger sub-tank and the Aspire Atlantis. I think that those are three more of the popular tanks, the Arctic, the sub-tank, and the Atlantis. So there are a slew of newer, what I would call Generation 2 sub-ohm tanks, but as far as the Generation 1 tanks go, I think those are three of the big ones, so we'll kind of look at and compare those. I will probably do a video on at least one more RDA coming up next week. I might do some accessories like drip tips and stuff upcoming. I will probably do a video on wicking materials coming up, just on my experience with using different ones, especially the rayon and the Japanese organic cotton. So all things to look forward to. But thank you for joining me for this review of the Aeolus by Syntheticloud. Great RDA. Can't recommend it more highly. But thanks for joining us, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.